All right, peace, 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 and Black Power family. Welcome to another episode of Remembering Osir Study Series, broadcasting live every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have the lovely Abat in the building, Henensu, hashtag I am Henensu. Comes my honor and privilege at this time to introduce some and present to others the founder and chief priest of Henensu, my brother, your brother, Benu is in the building.
All right. Uncle Johnson there, contempt, peace, life, prosperity, and health. It's an honor to be here once again, live on Do the Knowledge Radio, to engage in this discourse on Osir. Each week we going deeper into the book and, extracting those jewels that, the ancestors have actually, placed in the book, beyond the surface. These conversations are important. We're able to see what the word, how it's processed, if you will. How it's processed differently within each of us. Are able to bring forth, the gifts from our ancestors and the nether rules. So I'm excited and looking forward to, a great build. Definitely, Duwa. Now I was born for extending the invitation once again. And, Duwa to the Abat, Nisut for being in the building. To participate, much appreciated, and do I to everybody that's tuning in.
All right, we're gonna open up.
Tio. Okay, so before we get started, let's start things off in the right order, and first and foremost, pay homage and salute rank to our so I say Netaratin time with Neter Caparum Nunet, Caparum Riot, Caparum is shoot to flute, Caparum Watu, Caparum Pesaju, Nesarun, and Boo. Mother Neter manifest as Nunet is shoot to flute, it's Teru, all the divine forces of nature. Caparuim Osir, Caparuim Sutes, Caparuim Oset, Caparuim Nepet, Caparuim Aankhu, Duan Wapubat, Caparuim Sauser, Caparuim Tahuti, Duan Duneter, Beck Duan Mumu, Caparuim Pesaju Netaru Nebu, Garet, Pesaju Netaru Nebu. So it says, the power Father, Mother, the Terror, who manifests as to arms. Nut, Geb, Osir, it's also called war. Sutesh, Nebhet, Aankhu, Heru, son of Osir Neset, Tahuti, Subek, divine forces of nature, all the small or minor nature. Nesharatin yitamu ter keparuem oser kintiamenti you, jerti you, imuhat, imubat, uwos, suya, ku. Hesi you. So it says the power of Father, Mother, Mater, who manifests as Osir, foremost of the Westerners, the legendary ones, those of yore, those from before, those at the head, those at the beginning. Honorable ones, the effective ones, the praised ones. Salute our ancestors. Necharatin, Yita Mutneter Keparuim, Ninsu, Damed, Moneter. That says in the power of Father Moneter manifests as this collective in Ninsu and the collective of African people worldwide. I salute you as expressions and manifestations of Neter and I salute your ancestors. Waniter. All right, let's get this thing started.
All right. Just wanted to take our opportunity to acknowledge everyone on the panel. Head to pool, Uncle Justin Ebb, so we could go down the line and see if anybody had any opening remarks so we could get this thing started.
Hotepu, Uncle Justin Ebb. This is Amina. I'm excited to be here, especially going over. I believe this chapter is 3 we're going over. And I'm just excited about this chapter because he's basically leading us into the cosmologies and getting us to understand, the outlook of it. And I'm just excited to dive in.
To you, Guanete. Irief?
That's a cool. Not really any opening remarks yet. Just ready to dive into this. Yeah, glad to be here.
May?
Uncle Justin Nev, this is May. Just ready to, get some more knowledge and dive into the material.
OG Marina Turk.
Had to pull about. I don't have too much to share right now. Other than, just excited for the opportunity to build. And yeah, just ready to do this.
Right. All right. Does anybody want to lead off with a research question, or they want to speak about anything that stood out from them? Not necessarily if it's a research question. Initially, we're reading chapter 3.
To you, what stood out to me was right at the beginning when he was explaining like you can't go into the story looking at it as like a myth or a fairy tale, and you kind of like miss the big picture, the big message. But instead, understanding that as a spiritual story and a journey, that was pretty important and interesting to me.
Anybody else? Did anybody see any linkage in between where we are? We're on chapter 3. We have chapter 3, chapter 2, chapter 1. Anybody find any linkage, any correlation that they wanted to talk about?
I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, mine's brief anyway, but I was going to say, I didn't necessarily write about it, but just the fact that all of the, well, I don't know all of them, but most of the Nestle needed, like protection, healing, and I think he says salvaging and actually much more, but, and you see examples of that. Obviously, the book is called Remembering Osir. Remembering Osir, excuse me. And then, they, after Osir was dismembered, Osset went out to, of course, search for Osir and the severed body parts. Yeah. I was just going to go, say that in response to what your question was. So.
Okay. Marie?
To you, yeah, I was just gonna add the whole, premise of the third chapter it's kind of centered around the multiple agents, multiple manifestations of the one Neter. And when you look at the Osirian tradition, chapter 2, that's what you're really getting. The story, even though it's about Osir, it's about the other members of his life, the other members of his family, and how they work to resurrect him, and in doing so, it's a story of their individual evolution.
Okay. Excellent observations. This chapter took me back to chapter 1. Like chapter 3 could function as chapter 1. Chapter 2 could function as chapter 1. And of course chapter 1 could function, on its own as, as it is, chapter 1, because it's laying a groundwork for the root of the conversation. And it kind of sets a stage of differentiation between what we may know in our search or quest, or what has been handed down to us generationally as a concept of God, as a concept of divine being, as a concept of creator, and as a concept of creation, and duty and responsibility contained therein. So when we started to look at the beginning of the book, when we looked at that word dismember, look at what was taken. Look at the chief thing that was taken. Our ability to actualize our experience and worldview, and how we actualize our experience with our connection and relationship to our ancestral lineage, and through that great line of divine. That what was taken, that was a chief thing that was taken. So now we're no longer in a position to begin to actualize who we are, because we don't know, where we come from. That old adage is to say, you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. So we've just been running around aimlessly in a state of doubt, in a state of disbelief, in a traumatic state, because we can't find ourselves anywhere. So when we start to look at the Western actualization, it puts us in a particular state of malefic identification. So we are the way we are, we're at, and we're interfacing in a way that we're interfacing with the world based upon curses. But with the psychology, because our interface is cursed, and because we're not connecting to our source, we're not, connected to our power source in regards to ourselves. So when we start looking at, this chapter begins to immediately challenge our information and inclination towards our mind being, and our imagination being prepared to actually get an understanding of what is divine, and from an African perspective, as opposed to how we have been actualizing and interfacing thus far. I wanted to read something from page 75. It begins to open with, from the tradition surrounding Osir, Aset, and Heru, there's one thing that can be known about the spiritual tradition of Kemet, and that it is different. This is the first sentence on 75, but we know going through chapter 1 and chapter 2, we have a universal experience with the African traditional religion, in regards to how they are defined within the pillars. But now we're looking specifically at Kemetic spirituality and its differentiation from all that we knew. And also, all that it might be not in comparison or contrast, because, you know, Uncle Benu makes it clear that it's not a comparison or a one-to-one exchange, you know, further down on this page. However, it is, you know, to know from the beginning, to prepare your imagination and say, you're about to hear something that you may not ever have heard before. So it already gives you a clue from this first statement that one thing that can be known about the spiritual tradition of Kemet, and is that it is different. If we were to say it was just a story, a myth, a fairy tale, then one might say to themselves, oh, that makes sense. You know, because we all heard stories before. You know, we all hear this, you know, cosmological, in the beginning sort of tale. However, when we say that it's not just a story, but a cosmology, so now we have a root. You know, cosmology has a root and it's definitive. It says, but a cosmology, a spiritual story, a story about the divine. Then the first thing that one may find themselves thinking, oh, that's different. Because if we look at how you know the divine has been introduced to us, it's been introduced to us, one, away from us, and also with the infallibility conceptualization. So I think what was very, very key, looking at our traditions and looking at our ancestral lineage, is that we look at it with both eyes open. So the jewel is we could look at successes as well as what we might deem as not successful and still extract a lesson to move forward. So there's something noteworthy in everything that our ancestors done, you know. And for the untrained eye, and for the eye that sees things through a European worldview, this infallibility complex could definitely lead us to a ruin. If we just think about our parents for a second, you know, they are superheroes when we grow up, you know, and then when we see something wrong, we see a human flaw or a characteristic or something that we don't deem appropriate, you know, it shatters our view in regards to how we see our parents. And that can turn us into all types of turmoil and all of that, because it's a thing that we don't understand. You know, so when we start to look at that and we start to, you know, see those things, you know, we see those things as children, you know, and then we become adults, and, you know, we see it from the standpoint of our parents when we become parents. You see, so there's an interconnection that's there in regards to our lineage and connection to the divine, back to source, that we should approach with the same type of introspection. I know I probably said, you know, a bunch right there, but I want to kind of, you know, set that based off the reading.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, so I was definitely intrigued in regards to this differentiation. So take us to this process in regards to your intent, and, you know, this, because like I said, when I was reading that first statement, it really set the tone for what was to come, and just like the statements of, and, you know, saying like it set the stage for what was to come. It set the stage for cosmology. It gets you prepared for the direction that we're going in.
Two. Well, you know, as you articulated, you know, we started off the work in the introduction with the the pillars of African spiritual traditions. Okay, these things that generally unite all African traditions, including the Kemetic tradition. And, that was important. That's key. That's critical to understanding, African traditions in general, including the Kemetic tradition. However, there are what we call cultural universals, and then there are those intricacies. There are particulars. And the particulars are also important, right? It's important to, understand that, okay, while, let's say, if we're dealing with, let's say the Kemetic tradition and the Yoruba tradition, it's important to know that, yeah, there is a great similarity, or we can say flag level, there's great affinity between Heru and Shango. Okay, but the important details, there are important nuances and intricacies each respective culture and tradition and practice that aren't necessarily or that shouldn't be ignored, and that disallow us from being able to make 100% one-to-one correspondences and exchange and crossover. So if you practice, let's say the Kemetic tradition, or you practice the Yoruba tradition, you wouldn't just be able to offer blanket, a blanket exchange or one-to-one exchange the offerings of Heru and the offerings of Shango to one another. You wouldn't be able to offer, there's some things that might be taboo in one tradition and are not taboo in the other. Important, those are very important nuances that have to be respected. You go in and you might get yourself into whatever. But so in this particular instance, we want to point out particular aspect of the Kemetic tradition that makes it unique, and that is the perspective, okay, the interpretation of the divine, in the Kemetic worldview. I haven't seen it anywhere else, to be honest. Okay, not saying that just because I practice the tradition, or I'm a fan, or whatever the case. No, I say that I haven't seen the divine interpreted and engaged in in this way in any other tradition. That's the you use the word, we look at use the word infallible, right? We look at most religions, right? You find this idea or this concept of the divine being an infallible being, okay? An infinite, separate, infallible being, okay? That makes, fallible man and then judges us, right? It's just so crazy. But you don't find that in the Kemetic tradition. Cosmologies are portrayed in a particular way to teach lessons, and it uses the Neteru, uses Neter, and it describes the personality, okay, of these forces, right, in a way that are very relatable to man. And the reason for it ultimately is that these forces are the source of the personalities in man, and each personality comes with a set of assets and liabilities, or pros and cons, if you will. Okay, positive characteristics, negative characteristics, such and so on. But we're not even just talking about that. We're talking about how in many traditions, okay, we look to the divine for our salvation. We look to the divine to save us, right? But in the Kemetic tradition, it's actually flipped. It's actually reversed. You know, that is an interdependency. Okay, there's an understanding that the Neteru, right, our ancestors need us. They depend on us. Okay, right? We have to save the divine, and in doing so, we save ourselves. That's the, you know, that is the big. Just is not just as simple as saying, okay, well, you are the divine, so naturally saving the divine is saving yourself. It's not and cut and dry. It's something very, very unique that you have to pay attention to. You have to appreciate. Okay. I don't know if y'all want to get just right now, or we want to take some questions, or go in, a little bit more before I just go on one. But it's important. That's the point. I want to bring out something that I think is critical, because in the Kemetic tradition, okay, the living individual is Heru. You're the hero. Okay, you're the hero, and you come in with a heroic disposition, right? When you keep a shrine, this is a difference. I've seen in many African traditions fear of the deities, fear the Orisha. People fear the lower. They fear the Abosom. Okay, people, take a subservient disposition to them, right? And it's not that way. It's not that way. Okay, in the Kemetic tradition, these forces on us, right? And the priests in the tradition, and when you keep that shrine, you are preserving the force, protecting the force, saving the force, nourishing the force. So that's something that we could get into, and that's just the some of the things on the periphery of the essence of what we're talking about here, because the core of it, that's something very, very very, very important. But I don't want to let it go just yet. You know what I mean? I don't let it go just yet. So about it right now.
That's all you got to say, huh?
Yes, sir. at the moment, that's all I got to say about it right now.
Yeah, that differentiator is definitely key. Did anybody want to add? Anyone?
To you, it's Marie. I think it's significant as well that I think some of that infallibility goes hand in hand with the doctrine being, at least in the three major religions, being taught as history as well. And this is what you have with ATRs. While it's not taught as history, there still is a line of continuity that actually extends to the creator, and I just think that is very empowering, and it also it provides symbols for viewing life, which I found as it really adds a depth to the system that you just can't get outside. Yeah, that's that's it.
Anyone else? Anybody? Anything they want to add? Anybody want to bring up anything new? Um, Anything like that? This is a short chapter. I think we still need to, kind of stay here at least another week. I know some people couldn't join us. Moving on without this. Can anybody point to a portion or something substantial to them that helps us get a definition of what Kemetic spirituality is in this particular chapter?
See, I wanted to add off just what everything he said and piggyback off of Marie, what stood out, and he also goes into it there, and we see it now, especially with the big three, and why is why the fear is there, because these Western religions now, the traditions is kind of like the way they articulate it, and are teaching it, it's making it seem like the people. Well, he said primitive people to understand and capitalize the failed attempt of the primitive people to actually understand and conceptualize the divine. So it was I just seen that correlation to with the big three, and and why is that fear I see amongst our fellow brothers and sisters out there.
True. I know that relationship to God or divine begins with our adherence to the rules and regulations of our enemy. So divine is presented to us in a fashion, us specifically, in a way as that infallibility, again, that complex, how our enemies want us to see them. So it's really them, that they want, they want worship, they want praise, they want fear, they want sacrifices. And we have done all of these things. We have done all of these things. So we have empowered that type of energy, either, willingly or unwillingly, to build them up as a power over us. We have given them that type of dominion that is spoken about in the Western religions, indiscriminate to what particular inclination it is. That requirement, that is a requisite, for belief. That is a requisite. You see what I'm saying? And so this gives us a complete polar opposite view with our connection to one another. We are both interdependent upon one another. And, that could be a reason for, brothers and sisters not even wanting to embrace that because of a responsibility. We could say, hey, we put it in whomever's hands. You understand? Like, you can just fill in the blank and say, hey, nah, it's out of my hands. I'm putting it in. No. Over here, you got to roll up your sleeves. You got to get some cuts. You got to get some bruises. You know what I'm saying? You got to go through that, and going through that process, and into that process, you get a chance to see, what's real. So you can truly see your salvation over here. You see what I'm saying? It ain't like, hey, I went somewhere and I got quiet, and then next thing you know, I got a phone call. You see what I'm saying? There's some things, there's totality over here. There's totality. There's a holistic approach to what it is. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not just you're not alone. You see what I'm saying? Like we heard in the previous chapter, Osir speak to Heru and say, time is on your side, and I'm here with you. So, like, knowing that, you had that solace to continue to be the redeemer, to continue to be the heru, to continue to push forward. You know, our ancestors are with us. You see what I'm saying? Even though they're not here in, you know, with our material view, we can learn how to, you know, use those forces and, you know, build and reestablish that connection that was severed in our mind based off of our, you know, ability to misunderstand before we understand in regards to our reality. So that's not something that you could get, you know, not within the external view of the three major religions. You see what I'm saying? Well, in the internal view, you might get something closer. However, you know, there's no place like home, like Dorothy said in The Wizard of Oz or The Wiz. You understand what I'm saying? There's no place like home. Like, so us returning back home, you know, is of vital importance to our actualization, to, you know, who we are. You know, because just like chapter 1 said, when it spoke about initiation is a family and community thing. You know, so when we look at this initiatory rites process, you know, it's a process that brings us closer and closer together to one abad. However, this differentiation factor is we're distinguished from one another based upon our ability to submit to the process. So we become closer as a family based on our work and not just lineage. So we become closer, you know, in our understanding of that, you know, that work, that necessary work that need to be put in. You know what I mean? So if we out, you know, breaking bricks all day and we see somebody on the side chilling, you know what I'm saying? Like, we got a different affinity to one another than we have to the one that's sitting down there chilling all day. You see what I'm saying? There's another closeness. It's forged in that process. So us building this thing, like, you know, breaking these things that seem like, you know, brick and mortar and it's tumultuous. You know, we get down, you know, to it. We could be able to break those barriers down and break those things down that kept us away. And in the process, those bruises that we get along the way are you know, badges of honor, so to speak.
To you.
That's when somebody who done did all of them major world religions and all that jazz, you understand? Who did all that jazz, you know? All right. Did anybody have anything want to add? Did anybody want to get into any other of the chapter? Or y'all just ready for Unc to go in because he looked like he ready to go. You know what I'm saying?
Got any questions? Where the questions at?
Yes. Yeah. All right, let me
All right, so
let me go to 76. While most traditions center on the idea of man aspiring to salvation and redemption by, I'm on the second chapter of page 76. While most traditions center on the idea of man aspiring to salvation and redemption by seeking the divine, the Kemet tradition centers around the antithesis to the ancient Kemet. It is not the divine or God that must save man, but it is man that must seek and save the divine. Thus, I have rendered this ideology Nihem Nitur, or saving the Tur. Now, before you throw this book away or burn it and run and grab your prayer beads and holy water, oh snap! Let's take a moment to clarify some things. Before we can come to judgment on this tradition, it is important to take into account what exactly Kemet understood. What was their understanding and experience of the divine? To do this, we must have a look deeper into the things that they wrote about the divine. For these, for these purposes, the cosmologies are a perfect place to begin. So again, with this, almost like a forward, almost like introduction, again, to begin to say, okay, this is where the conversation is going now. And we couldn't have it without a context. So we could see, the introduction for anybody coming in. That's the outer way of the mind. Like, what is this? The skeptic could pick up the book and start reading the intro and be like, what is this Kemetic stuff all about, or whatever? You see what I'm saying? And then, you get to that. Well, Uncle Benu was speaking about the universalities. You see those universalities, those connectors, and then you get the story. Because without the story, you don't really have a place to look at what will be next. So we got the story, and just as Marie Nisut was bringing out about the character development and bringing about those qualities of Nisut that are inside man, and the various characteristics and traits that go along with the makeup of man. So now we get to the point where it becomes a period of defining. So just like defining Kemetic spirituality, we have to define this essence where we get to now with cosmology. And I like what was said here about this. In order to take that into account, what was written about Neter. So what was written about? So now we're not just going off of guesswork. So again, another differentiator. You see, we deal with divinely inspired words over here. We deal with, hey, it might have been said, this or this or this or that. You see what I'm saying? But now we start to deal with, okay, we're going to deal with, how this whole thing is, really broken down in regards to not just the speculation, but we actually get a chance to hear the thoughts and ideas and everything based upon the writings. So I think that was an excellent point for me that stood out when I was reading page 76. Besides the fact that somebody calling this one of them heretic Satan worship books, what I'm saying? They're ready to throw the joint away, and they're only on page 76. They got like 600 more pages to go. So anybody want to add to that? No? Uncle, it's on you.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, we don't quite get to the actual cosmologies, in this chapter, but I said the next paragraph goes into give some examples. Neter needing saving. Okay, Neter needing help. Saying the divine needs help. Where you come from with some stuff like that, right? Well, it's important to understand, let's say, the first point of departure, talking about African traditions, is number one, there's a difference between, let's say, the infinite, the all, the source, right? And the creator in African traditions. Okay? In African traditions, you got Nu, okay, in the Kemetic tradition, right? And then you have Ra, Neteru. Okay. Now, Nu will be the source. Ra will be the creator. Okay. But in you know, in African traditions, most African traditions, right? You know, the source, if you will, is considered aloof. It's, you know, it's infinite, it's everything, it's everywhere, it's incomprehensible. It's something that you cannot engage directly because, you know, that, you know, you don't have, you know, we don't have a circuitry, right, to even, okay. So in most traditions, it's considered aloof. Now, the creator, even still, okay, it's a force that is still, to a certain extent, it's up there, right? But you know, when we start getting into the way that essence understood creator or creation, you know, they understood it as a system. They understood it as a system, and there's various components that make it up. And just like any system, you need each and every component in that system to be operating full capacity, you know, optimal performance. You know, any component within the system fails, becomes weak, it weakens the entire system. Okay, it throws off the equilibrium of the entire system. So our ancestors, this is what they portrayed in the cosmologies. And, you know, these forces, you know, we're going to break this down on an abstract level, because I want to make sure that everybody understands this. You know, on an abstract, you know, through abstract analogy, let's say we just dealing with elements of fire, water, earth. Okay, you know, there are elements that nourishes fire. There are elements that conflict with fire. Okay, you throw water, too much water onto a fire out. Okay, you know, you put, you know, too much fire on, you know, onto, you know, a container of water, it'll cause all that water to evaporate and it'll transform into air. You know, this is a science that our ancestors understood. So, you know, let's say something, you know, we need fire, like, cool, to our survival and to this particular aspect of our lives and our society, a critical element that we need to work with it. Okay, so our ancestors, to keep the fire burning, to protect the fire, to nourish the fire. You know, we don't want, you know, too much air to put the fire out. We don't need too much water to put the fire out. We need to protect and preserve the fire. Okay, and the same thing with the water. Yeah. Same thing with the earth. These abstract, or, you know, I say when we get into the natural, okay, they are the specific, okay, articulations of these abstract general elements. Right? So our engaging of these forces within the system, specific things that these forces need in order to survive, in order to operate at a maximum level, an optimal performance, output. They are, you know, duties that they're meant to carry out within creation. And, you know, it is our role and responsibility to make sure that they're able to do so. And, you know, that's a very important thing to understand. You know, it's different from in the Western tradition, where, you know, you have this God that created you but don't need you. Okay, superior to you, you know what I mean? But, judges you for your inferiority, and condemns you and punishes you, chastises you for your inferiority. Then, he, right? Always goddamn he, okay, goes on to actually require him, even though he don't need it. Jealous God. You know what I'm saying? He's a jealous God because his ego, worship and adoration of him and him alone, because he's got an ego problem, jealous, some jealousy issues, some insecurities, right? This is what the book said. That's just what the book said. But it's important. Okay, that's a big departure when we start talking about African traditions. Okay, understanding that Nebejer, or the infinite, the Lord of the limits, or the all in all, right? The source. That is, it's we don't deal with it directly, yet it's the substance and essence of who and what we are. You know what I mean? But it in its infinite form doesn't do anything for us. It's only in its articulation in specific aspects. Okay, we start talking about the Neteru, because even Ra is our life in general, right? And that's the creator. Okay, right? So the creator of life is life itself in the Kemetic tradition. The creator comes into being as creation itself in the Kemetic tradition. Evolves as creation, including us in the Kemetic tradition. Right? So even when we start talking about Ra, Ra had a temple, right? But Ra's temple, it didn't get work because you're still dealing with a very abstract force. Getting into the forces that are more directly involved in day-to-day activities, things of that nature, what's needed to sustain our ecology, our livelihoods, our families and things of that nature, our ancestors, right? And the forces that correspond to our ecology. These are the forces that will work with more, more directly. Okay. That's a very important difference. Most important, and this is the point. Understanding that Ra, or understanding that Neter being as creation itself. The creator and creation are one in this tradition. And later on, and I'm not sure if it's this chapter or the chapter following the cosmologies, but we come to see that when we start talking about Neter, right, as our actual intelligence and power, okay, our actual energy, right, the energy and matter that makes us up, the actual intelligence and energy, intelligence and power that we consist of, okay, the same intelligence that we use to heal, the same intelligence that we use, the same intelligence that we use to create life, right? The same intelligence that we use to create, a type of technology to destroy life, right? The same intelligence that we use to, construct all of the beautiful art, right? And aspects of culture, the same intelligence that we use to to create abominations, perversions, etc. so on. Intelligence and power is Nete itself. Right? So in the tradition, right, and this is a jewel. In the tradition, there's a story called the contendings of Heru and Sutesh. Okay, and in the story, right, in the tradition, right, Ra is there with his council, right, his tribunal, and they are judging between Heru for who's going to ascend to the throne of Osir. Right? Now, both Heru and Sutesh are here before the Creator and pleading their case, arguing their case, why they should be the one to rule. Now, Heru would say, right? I should rule because I'm the son of the actual Nisut, right? I'm the actual heir to the throne. I should rule this, that, and the third. Sutesh is over here like, but you just a boy, you're weak, etc. so on. And Ra is there listening, and after each one speaks, he goes, hey, like he goes in that direction. Then the other one speaks and he goes in that direction. That this force, right or wrong, this force, you're able to take into your will and to harness and direct it in the direction that you would have it. Right? That's important. You see, no one has ever explained to us or expressed the divine in that way, understanding that the very intelligence and power, okay, that we have at our possession, that we utilize and bend to our will. You see? And the way that we direct that intelligence and power, the way that we utilize and focus our attention, and the way that mobilizes the forces within our being to go on and create effects in the world. That's the Creator. And it's completely at our will. This is something that the Jews, right? They understand this. They might have been inspired or took it or whatever. I don't know. But there's a book. Well, even before I mention this book, when you talk about the story of Yakub wrestling with God, so to speak. And he's wrestling with God in the form of this angel. And the Creator, right, breaks his hip. And Jacob or Yakub, he's like, he won't let him go. So, he's wrestling with God until God hollers out in pain, like, yo, let me go. And, Yakub tells him, not until you bless me. So, to tell him or give him a name, Yisrael, meaning to fight to contend with, to fight God. Okay? And then tells him that, because you have fought or struggled with God and persevered, so how much more will you be able to be successful against men in other nations? The idea that you could actually possess, actually grab, and within your grasp, right, the divine force and bend it to your will. This is something that they were talking about in the story. There's a book that goes into this a little bit further, and it's called God is a Verb, right? I recommend that you burn the book. Don't buy it, give them crackers no money. Burn the book if you can, find it PDF download or whatever the case may be. And in it, they talk about in that book how for the Jewish people, right? And the reason why they're called Israel is because, right, the quote-unquote will of God, this is what they say, the quote-unquote will of God has never been the final say for Israel. They argue and argue and argue and argue. Don't take my word for it. Check it out. All right, this is them, what they say about their own tradition. And when you read the Talmud, it's different arguments that they can make to get around following the word in the scriptures, as is actually they interpret it in a way to where they can get away with breaking certain taboos. That's what it's about. So when we start talking about the Kemetic tradition, right? It's not anyway anything goes or just going against the quote unquote will or law of Neter. No, we understand that being that is the essence of us, that is our very intelligence and power, that are the forces of nature that we all depend on, experience in survival. Okay, we understand that we have a great responsibility, and instead of abusing the force, instead of abusing the intelligence and power that we possess, instead of bending the divine force to do that which is isfet, right? We protect it, we preserve it, we sustain it, understanding the divine potential within ourselves, even as a seed that must be nourished and protected, right? That's the significance of Heru and Osir, understanding the seed of the divine within you, right? And then protecting it at all costs, that it grows and that it matures, that is able to reach a point where it is strong enough to overcome chaos and confusion and reestablish and maintain ma'at, or balance or order, in our lives and in the world. That's what we're talking about here. Yeah, you could use your intelligence and power to do all kind of crazy stuff. Yeah, you could use your intelligence and power to be as savage as you want to, be as lewd as you want to, right? You have the liberty to do so, but are you right in doing so? Is right even important to you? You see, is right even important to you? Right isn't important to these other folk. Right isn't important to them. But it's always been important to us. And that's why ma'at, which means that which is correct or right, ma'at, okay, is what we always, practice and strive to maintain. Correctness. Okay, in spite of what we have the liberty to do.
Just gonna drop the mic and walk off the stage like that, huh, GG?
Well, I can keep going now. Shoot.
Anybody got any questions? Anybody got any comments? Anything they like to add in?
Can you tell us more about the? Let me see what page is that. Oh, so at the bottom of half of page 76 with the Osir story, poisoning. Osir, the poisoning and the healing. Can you tell us more about that?
Okay, I say now, and I was crazy. I was thinking about, and I was also thinking about the Jewish Hebraic, borrowing, if you will, of that story, right? Right? Osir, she's trying to gain to the power of Ra. So she decides, I want to, devise a plan to gain access to Ra's secret name. Okay, because in our traditions, if you knew the true name of a thing, okay, then you have power over that thing. So this extends to rights of nature. So when you look at all of our ritual texts, it is all about invoking these forces by name. And once you do that, you're able to direct those forces to what you needed to do. And usually the name or the epithet, if you will, reflects whatever function you need that force to carry out. So we get in more into that science, in a little bit. But Ra's traveling with his entourage. Osir, she takes before we even get there. So Ra's also old as hell at the time, right? He's old. So they say that he had old that his lips drooped, his lips hung low like an old man, and drool just used to fall and hang from his lip and whatnot. So some of his drool hit the floor, and Osir, she took the drool and the dirt, and she made like a clay from the drool of Ra, from the saliva of Ra and the dirt, and she shaped it into the form of a snake. Okay, and when Ra passed by, again, that she shaped and conjured, right? She brought it to life, and it bit Ra on the foot. And right, the poison from the venom from the snake, got in him, and he just started crying out in excruciating pain. He's just like, yo, something got me, right? Osir, she hop out the bush like, yo, what's wrong, Baba? What's wrong, Yitzhak? Oh, it looks like you've been bitten by a snake or whatever. So, she's like, I can help you. I can heal you, but before I can do that, I need you to tell me your name. And Ra go on one. He's like, yo, I'm Kepri in the morning, Ra at noon, at Tome in the evening, and I created this, that, and the third. I be rising and setting, traveling and sailing through the universe. I'm all of that, right? And Osir's like, yeah, you all of that, but that ain't your name. What's your name, man? Right? So she hold off a little bit on healing him, until the pain becomes unbearable, and finally, and he causes his name to enter into Osir. Okay, and then after that he took off. You know, she healed him. He took off. He went into hiding, and the power of Osir, or pardon me, the power of Ra, which is literally the power over creation via the Creator. Okay, Osir's disposal because she knew the knowledge of Ra's name. And you know, this same story is in the it's in the Hebrew tradition, where you have the angel that is actually identified with Osir, Uzzah, okay, Uzzah, right? Which is, or Asa, that's another way to say it, Asa, Uzzah, you know, the T from Oset or Aset, the T has been dropped in the Semitic, so it's Uzzah, okay? And she's also called Shamyarza, okay? And you know, in the story, that particular angel gets in trouble because he, you know, or she teaches or tells a man the name of God. Okay, same, how you say, same force, different different area. You know, dealing with them taking the name of the Creator, which in the Hebraic tradition or Jewish tradition, the the name of God, you're not supposed to utter it, etc., so on and all of that. I say, you know, when you get into Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, etc., so on, tetragrammaton, and understanding that this name is actually a ritual formula, okay, in terms of manifesting things and whatnot. So it's it is a very important thing that's being expressed here. But in both cases, the understanding is that through knowledge of the name of the divine and how to invoke the divine, right, you have access to the power of the divine to create as a creator in your own life, using the Creator to do so. Okay, so that's the significance of that particular story.
That's a good story.
Till. You know, that story teaches is a very important lesson because you're able to literally, it's teaching that you're able to harness that power, to wield that power, to be a vessel for it. So, it's important that the name entered into her. Okay, so she became a vessel for that force. And this is the crux of actions in particular, where our rituals are to become vessels for these forces. All these forces exist within us. So when we crank the volume up on one in particular through invoking it by name, causing that force to quicken and awaken within us, we become a vessel for that particular force. We become personifications of force, and that's what that is. That's what's being expressed there. Yo.
Yo.
Two.
Yeah, man.
Born, you over there making chitlins?
Uh-oh. He in there getting his Thanksgiving chitterlings.
Hey, they red, black, and green with unks on them, okay?
He getting them beans
Yo,
ready.
I see.
They are.
I see a question in the joint from David Rollo. Days. I don't know. You know what it's all about. Did I mention something about something happening in a few days?
The world going in? I think chitlins going to sell on Black Friday, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to be out there on Black Friday standing in line waiting for that store to open. You know what I'm saying? So I can get my chitlins on the discount.
Uh-oh.
Ew.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Ew.
Anybody else got anything they want to add? Any questions they wanted to ask?
We done got into some deep stuff.
We were on the subject of taboo, so I just wanted to ask in the NKMT tradition in regards to taboo, how important is taboo in our particular culture?
Okay, I say extremely important. It's important in abstain or to adhere to certain taboos. In African traditions generally. Okay. So that's a universal. There's things that are considered ma'at, correct or right, and then there are things that are considered taboo. When we look at what most people refer to as the 42 or the 42 declarations of innocence or so-called negative confessions, right? I was watching a broadcast the other day, and folks was talking about they brought up the 42 what I call the oaths of purity. And it was mentioned that question was asked of whether or not, okay, for these folk to say, I have not done this, I have not killed, I have not stolen with violence, I have not stolen offerings from the shrine of Neter, I have not killed the sacred animal of Neter, I have not done right? Or for them to say, I have not done this, the question was, did they receive the order from a divine, from the divine? And, person that was presents themselves as, speaking for Kemet and representative of the Kemetic tradition, I'm assuming he said, no, this is what was conveyed. Now, there's a problem, right? There's a problem in the amongst those that represent Kemet that, once again, they are, make Kemet appeasing and coddling to the Negropean or westernized mind. And that's a problem. Okay, to reduce the Neteru to simply principles or to symbols or things of that nature, you are doing you are spreading misinformation. You're lying to the people. That's what you're doing. You might just be ignorant to the reality of it, and that's a fault to whoever you got your information from. All of that being said, okay, oaths of purity or so-called negative confessions or declarations of innocence, laws of Ma'at, essentially, okay, this is taken from chapter 125 of the Pertimira, okay, coming forth by day, so-called Book of the Dead. And when you read the Pertimira, what you see is the ancestors journey through the spiritual realm, right? And it's a unique book because portrayed, it is the only text in the tradition that portrays the spirit realm as though one is traveling through a temple okay, versus the duat. You know, they portray the duat in the semblance of a temple. Okay, and one is seeking to gain access to the shrine of Neter. You know, when you enter into the temple, only first and foremost, only the initiate can go into the temple. Okay, and then there's different parts of the temple that are reserved for different levels of initiates. The goal of each initiate is to eventually gain access to the Hiwat Neter, or the house of the Neter, which is the innermost sanctuary. They're able to do that, cultivate a high level of ritual purity. Okay, and this is what is being described in the 42 oaths. There's an invocation before each statement or declaration is made or oath is taken. There's an invocation of a Neter, right? 42 different Neteru are invoked, okay? And afterwards, the individual who was an ancestor / priest, okay, says that they will not or they have not violated this oath, and that is an oath that they take within the Neter that they invoke before making a statement. Once it's been, you know, the heart is being weighed in the scene, right, to see if whether or not they've kept their oath. Have you kept your oath? And if you have kept your oath, you are then allowed to gain access to the shrine of the Neter. Okay. Now this is I say this is important because, you know, it's demonstrating that, you know, and also, you know, after you know, when you read the text, after the oaths have been stated, you know, and the heart has been found equal to Ma'at, meaning they spoke the truth and they lived the truth. They didn't commit these taboos. Okay, then, right, they you know, declare Wob Kui, right? I am pure. I am pure. They're allowed to gain access into the shrine of the Neter to approach the divine. So it's understood that, you know, ritual purity, okay, is maintained, right, through observing certain taboos. In this particular instance, there's 42 taboos. Prevent you from approaching the divine. And I say that's as a priest looking to get initiated and gain access to the shrine, okay, to actually receive the Neter. And then there's also you know, to actualize your divine potential, because when you read the text, once they get into the shrine, they put on the clothes of the deity themselves, right? And sacrifices and offerings are made to them. This is representing the initiation of the high priest or the chief priest, the Ham Neter, who is only allowed access. He's the only one that's allowed access traditionally. Okay, the Ham Neter, Hamat Neter, the high priestess. Okay, by abstaining from or observing certain taboos. All right, so it's extremely important. You know, there's universal taboos, and then there's particular taboos based upon the location. Right, there's each Neter has taboos, things that you should offer, things that you should never offer. Okay, there are things that you should never offer. There are things that you should never, I say, never do, never wear, etc. So on. You know what I mean? It's very, very important, because these forces, it's important to understand that, you know, this is a science, right? And certain things are agreeable, certain things are disagreeable. Just like if you're dealing with chemicals, you wouldn't mix certain chemicals because you get a negative reaction, a combination, if you will. Okay, you know, it's the same thing with these forces. You know, when you offer them something that's agreeable, it's considered ma'at. You offer some that's disagreeable, it's considered boot or taboo. Okay, and the results of offering that which is taboo, is it's analogous to the results of mixing chemicals that are disagreeable. When you mix them, they cause an explosion. Okay, blow your hand up, blow up in your face. You got pick glass pieces out of your face and stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like that. Melt your whole shit off, right? So it's important. It's very important, okay, to observe certain taboos. Very important to observe taboos.
We said experimenting with high explosives, GG.
Hey, got to be more careful. It's definitely not a game. Let's say, for instance, right, here's a prime example. And I think it's a good example. There's the the oath that says, I have not slain or killed slaughtered the sacred animal of the Neter. There's, I say, depending on the Neter in question, right? Slaughtering the sacred animal of the Neter is a universal. However, what the sacred animal is depends upon the temple, it depends upon the Neter, it depends upon the city, etc. so on. So, in certain cities, for instance, it would be considered taboo to slaughter a dog. A dog, or a black dog or whatever. It'd be taboo to slaughter that dog because that dog would be sacred to Aankhu, who is the chief Neter of that temple, or the chief Neter of that city. Okay, taboo to slaughter a cow because the cow is sacred to Osir, is sacred to Henensu, etc. so on. Okay, certain locations is taboo to slaughter a ram because that animal is sacred to Amun. Right? So instead of offering a ram to Amun, you would offer a goat. Places where the goat is sacred, okay, right, to the deity, you wouldn't slaughter the goat, you would offer the ram. This is very important. When we start talking about understanding that this is a science, these forces, right? You gotta really know what you're doing, because you just thinking that, well, shit, I say African religions are about this, that, and the third, and you just getting to cutting and killing animals, and you don't know what you're doing. Okay, you get yourself into some serious trouble and whatnot. And it's not just limited to animals. There's it's also including plants, minerals, all of that. You know what I mean? There's things that are considered correct, and then there are things that are considered taboo. That's why it's important to, you shouldn't be out there trying to wing it when dealing with this stuff. Conditions, you don't wing it. Gets you hurt. Okay? I said there was one thing I wanted to mention. This term ma'at, it's also used to describe familial, like things. We start talking about laws, and laws are relative, and relativities mean relationships. So, when we start talking about ma'at, it's used. The same term is used in the Kalenjin language. The Kalenjin people of Kenya. And in describing relationships or spiritual connections that they have to certain people, animals, etc. so on. So certain people, certain tribes would have a particular animal that would be considered their ma'at. And this is something that you find throughout Africa. You find it throughout the continent, that certain clans have animals that are sacred to their clan. Okay. This is, or there might be a tree that's sacred to their clan, right? And as this tree is sacred, or as this animal is sacred, or their ma'at, it is considered taboo for them to kill that animal or allow anyone to kill that animal, okay, with their knowledge. Okay, so that's that's a very, very important observance throughout Africa.
To you, that example you used about that broadcast that you're seeing, I was saving that for Saturday. You understand what I'm saying? So hopefully we can revisit that in detail on Saturday. You know what I'm saying?
Which example was that?
that example about the corresponding relationship between I have not and thou shalt not.
Two.
Yeah, so hopefully we can revisit that with some other, you know what I'm saying, conversation one time for Kemet, for real. I know we at that hour right now, so if anybody got any closing remarks, any closing statements, if you want to share some takeaways, but before we do that, I know we said we wanted to do, well, I suggested that we do 2 weeks, but being that we on this cusp of going into chapter 4 is extensive in length, and I know we're going to spend some ample time there, and it will answer a lot of the questions on the outside, especially the questions we received last week in regards to your said ability to read the language. to read the language and the sort, you see what I'm saying? So for everybody, I think we can get a consensus that we're prepared to move on to chapter 4. We can begin with any additional questions that anybody might find in chapter 3 before we go into chapter 4 next week, but we are prepared to go straight into chapter 4 if everybody's in agreement with that.
To you.
To you.
To you.
Absolutely, to you.
All right, so now we can turn it over to anybody for their final remarks, takeaways from tonight's discourse.
I had a question. More so, just wanted to bring up,
Right.
that Turkey Day. We joking about it. Can you and what would be your perception on why, I don't know, besides all the bad food that's offered on that day, is there any correlations to, especially to me it seems like a ritual, it's every day on the same day, the food offerings, the big turkey, I guess, on the table. Is there any correlations?
Well, I know, Thanksgiving, what they call Thanksgiving is always on a Thursday, right? Thursday, Thursday is ruled by Jupiter. It deals with expansion, expansiveness, wealth, right? It's the major fortune. So, that's why the lavish meal or the feast and all of that. That's one of the reasons why I would say it's kept on a Thursday like that. Somebody knew what they was doing. But in general, there really is, when we start talking about festivals, right? Because these quote unquote holidays, they're like festival days, okay? Many of them are based on festivals that they were observed in Europe and whatnot. A lot of stuff goes all the way back to Greece and whatnot. And when you start getting into that, a lot of it was inspired by things that that our ancestors were doing. But when we start talking about traditions, you start talking about the Kemetic tradition in particular, you know, there's every single day. You look at the Kemetic calendar, there is literally a festival single day. There's a festival going on somewhere in the nation. So whether we're talking about, you know, a festival observance of the harvest, an example of that one historically is Sukari Festival. And around this time, or in the, you know, in beginning parts of December, and you know, that's a festival, is, you know, about the harvest, is about, you know, celebrating the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. You know, the elevation of you know, Osir, direction of Osir, and the the divinity, right? Not just elevating, right? But also, you know, deifying Osir, right? So this is teaching about ancestral veneration, and as well as understanding, you know, Osir as our Ba, okay, you know, as a living Ba of Osir, and once that Ba, you know, elevated, you know, or awakened and then empowered, okay, then elevated to the throne, right? That is what is you know, speaking to. So the name of the festival is Neteriot, okay, Neteriot, right? Meaning divine, okay, and that's what it's, you know, that's what it's about. It's about, you know, taking those, you know, when we start talking about the harvest, we talk about the seed, taking a thing from a seed state of potential to ultimately actualizing that potential at the harvest, when it bears, you know, the mystery that the seed contained is actually, you know, is actualized, it's revealed. Those, I say, a lot of those symbols, if you will, are celebrated during this festival. You know, but like I said, you know, you pick any day, you pick any time of the year in our tradition, and there is a festival that you could observe. You know, that's about the best I can do for that one.
See you, do I?
Too.
All right. So, anybody have any closing remarks for the family? Any takeaways besides justifying they eating of that turkey? You know what I'm saying?
Hey, I didn't say I was eating anything now.
Let me know. I say
I wasn't talking about you, sir. I wasn't talking about you, sir.
You the one behind the
let me
scenes
know.
getting them greens ready.
No,
Just want to be known.
They are ready.
Hog is a universal taboo in the Kemetic tradition. Swine is taboo.
That's right.
Want to be clear. And
Yep.
My fault. I really don't have any closing remarks right now. Kind of busy with my son, but definitely enjoyed the session though, for sure. Like, there's a lot of knowledge thrown out there though, so glad I made it. Why?
Why the tell?
Mate.
good. I really, I guess the biggest takeaway I got was actually from the Osir story with Ron. It kind of reminded me of, like, tonight kind of reminds me and resembles, as we already brought up, like Christianity in particular, and how, like, you know, they say when you speak the name of Jesus, and, you know, like there's power in the name, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, that just kind of brought me back to those, you know, different things taught in that practice or religion. So yeah, tonight was good. Thank you.
And I say to kind of speak to for a deeper understanding of why that is. The book Slave Religion. You know, I can't remember the author's name, about the you know, the church in the antebellum South. You know, in it, you know, the book is essentially about how the early, you know, formation of the black church, you know, served the purpose of camouflaging the African tradition. It was, you know, just like with Santeria and, you know, voodoo and hide, or not even just Santeria and voodoo, into, you know, Sufism, start talking about Bori, start talking about Czar, and of you know, of North Africa and East Africa as well. The African tradition is camouflaged, you know, where, you know, let's say Islam might be dominant, or you know, Hebraic tradition might be dominant, whatever the case may be. You find the same thing. So eventually, of course, the hidden meaning was lost. So when we said power in the name of Jesus and this, that, and third, originally we, you know, was talking about something else, right? We were talking about something else. We're talking about another force, and you know, a lot of the elements, the training, or you got seers and quote unquote prophesizing and all of that in there. You know, the healing and the energy work and whatnot in there, and also the ritual possession and all of that, mediumship and all of that in there as well. You know, pretty much, you know, the elements that you would find, you know, in ATRs, in our rituals, you know, in our ritual practice, you find a lot of it in there. So, you know, that's a good book to check out.
Marie?
To you, I guess I gotta think about that question. I actually had a question, but I think I'm gonna hold it for next week, because it could be, the answer might be kind of lengthy. I just want to say,
go on, that's that joint, yo.
Well, it was I was revisiting the pillars laid out in chapter 1 of the African traditional religious systems, and particularly the last point, where you talk about the importance of satisfying and uplifting the various agencies of the spirit world through our spiritual and moral cultivation, offerings, and sacrifice for success in life, and the realization and actualization of one's innate potential. Drawing attention to the last part in particular, the actualization of one's innate potential. How does the practice of Nehemneter allow one to access that?
Okay, I see. Good question, right? So, you know, these stories that were mentioned, right? The story the contending between Heru and Sutesh, where, you know, we're going back and forth. If we were to understand both Heru and Sutesh in that particular story as symbols of the will of man, the man, I mean man and woman. Okay, you know, and you know, each argument being made swaying Ra in this direction or that direction. You know, we're talking about the, you know, we're talking about free will. We're talking about the will. And, you know, when we understand the way that the divine is being portrayed, you know, it's something that's something that's tangible, something that's within your grasp, something that is something that is delicate. Intelligence, your power, your attention, right, are neter. And when you understand your, you know, you understand that, implications of that, right? The implications of that, right? You know, you become responsible, right? You become responsible. Right? What this tradition is about, as Bourne said earlier, you know, this is about responsibility. This tradition is responsible. Okay, you are Heru. This is why in a ritual context, you know, every single priest, every living individual, first and foremost, is associated with Heru. But especially the priesthood, right? The practitioner, those that work directly with the forces, right? Intentionally, right? You're identified ritually with Heru, with the Nisubiti. Okay? It's the, you know, in African traditions, it is the responsibility first and foremost of the king, quote unquote, okay, to ensure that the spiritual realm is taken care of, the ancestors are taken care of, the natural world taken care of, act for life, prosperity, health, things, right? It kept them first. All of the good things within your land for your people, right? To ensure and the survival of your people. It's your responsibility to make sure spiritual realm is good, because this ain't nothing but everything out here ain't nothing but the end results. It's what comes after the equal sign in the equation, and on the other side of that equal sign is the spiritual realm. And you know, before that is our actions, our intentions, right? So you know, that's very, very, very critical. Okay, to understand that you are responsible for living, right? This divine being as the essence of you, your will, your attention, your intelligence, your power with it. How are you going to utilize it? When you understand is your intelligence, you become more conscious with your thoughts. You become more conscious and careful with your attention, conservative with your attention. You know, you become more conscious and careful with your actions, with your emotions. Responsible, first and foremost. So you begin to protect, you seek to preserve that divinity within you, and nourish it and sustain it, protect it, right? That is the power of Nehemeter. That you are responsible. You, right? You're the Heru. It has to elevate and resurrect your father within you. You see? And to preserve and protect that body in that shrine. Turn that shrine from a sarcophagus to a throne where that force can rule, right? Can exercise power through you. Ain't nothing like it.
It's huge. Why? So, just from that alone, I think the biggest takeaway is, even though we're talking about saving the tear, it's not something that's designed or done for a show of ego. It's about service.
About service. You are hamneter, hamatneter. You are servant of the neter. Service, just service. Also, oh God, you're so great. Oh, glory be. No. And we do give praise and adoration to the Neteru because of the services that they provide for us. We service them in the same way that a mechanic services a car. In the same way that a mechanic services a car, or the AC man come and serves your damn air conditioner. Okay? We make sure that all of everything that's needed for this mechanism in nature, mechanism is able to continue to carry out the functions for the overall harmony and order. That's it. Your car break down, you call on the if you don't know how to save it or to fix it, you're on the mechanic in that moment. It's the same thing here. We the Heru for the Neteru.
Is Heru the same or similar to Obatala, or no?
Heru is more closely associated with has closer affinity, I should say, to Shango.
Oh, okay.
And to a certain degree, Ptah are more similar, and especially you got Obatala and you also got Oduduwa. Okay, one of them is also said to be the one that shaped man, from clay or something like that. With Osir, with Ptah, with Kunum, these are forces that show closer affinity, more affinity to Obatala than Heru. Heru's more closer to Shango.
Do I?
Two.
All right, anybody else? Anybody got anything else? All right, Nisut.
Well, I say, I want to say dua to the family that I want to say, dua to you, Brother Bond, for extending the invitation once again. The dialogue, and dua to the Africans that are tuning in via YouTube. Okay, definitely, I want you to know that you are appreciated. I will that you gain deeper understanding from this discourse. And I'm pretty sure that you heard some things tonight to the Kemetic tradition in particular that you might not have ever heard before. Very important things, and this is a series that we're doing. If you did not catch the the beginning of this, Okay, go into the archives and catch this. You know, get caught up so that you can follow along. And if you don't have the book Remembering Osir, okay, if you don't have that book, you need to get the book Remembering Osir as soon as possible. It is the book that you know, brings the Kemetic tradition in a most authentic way. Sets the record straight for a lot. You know, okay, so you know, it sets the record straight. Let's put it that way. So interested in really practicing the Kemetic tradition and understanding the Kemetic tradition, our ancestors laid it down. That book, Remembering Osir. So that book is available at www.henensu.com. www.henensu.com. That's HENENSU.com. Okay. Just go to the marketplace and, you know, on the website, and you'll be able to find the book. Also, you know, you have the opportunity to join us. Never been to Kemet. Even if you've been to Kemet, you ain't been with us. You need to come with us to Kemet, make pilgrimage with us to Kemet. You know, we're going next summer. We go every year, and we study these things, the things that you heard today, that you heard about the rituals and temples and shrines and all of that. You know, we deal with all of that. We break it down, doing the tear on the walls in the temples in Kemet. This is something, like I said, you know, we do this. This is not just, you know, we're fascinated with. This is our actual practice. This is our actual culture that we live. Okay, we engage these forces in time, in reality. Okay, so I recommend that you check us out. Visit henensu.com for more information on there and the Cool Kim Kemet Tour 2018. All right.
And that extra week. Did you add in the extra week?
Oh, the Sudan.
Till. Yeah. You know, next year we're actually, there's an option. The general tour is days, 13 nights, but we've added an option for those that would like to extend the trip another 7 days. Then, and we're talking about, you know, visiting all the ancient Nubian monuments from Khartoum, Dongolawi, Patai, okay, Jebel Barko. Okay, we're visiting, you know, many of the major in the Sudan. Okay, you know, and of course, just like we do in Kemet, you know, in Nubia, and we stay in the Nubian village for like 3 days, 3 nights. The Nubian elders and those that still adhere to the practices in Nubia. You know, go and learn and build, learn from them and build with them. Same thing in the Sudan. Okay, so, you know, like I said, this is, you know, it's not a game, you know, no disrespect or anything like that to anybody else that's doing tours to Kemet. Okay, you know, I salute you for the work that you do, but I want everyone to know, and you really want to understand the Kemetic tradition, you trying to get to the nuts and bolts and actually practice this thing, okay, you need to come with us.
All right. So if y'all also want to check out Uncle Benu, y'all can catch him on Cool Kim Radio also this Friday, 4th Friday of every month. I heard heard there's some things going on this Friday, Black Friday. So, you know what I mean? I know y'all gonna be out there, you know, buying what's them things that be flying around on now? What's them little
drones and whatnot, huh?
out there get drones and all that stuff on Black Friday. But if y'all if y'all
Don't do
y'all
people like that now.
if y'all want to be out there, hey, bullets is on sale too. You understand what I'm saying? So you know you can get some bullets if you need some extra rounds. You know what I'm saying? Or some extra rifles. You know they on sale too. You know what I mean? So
Okay,
that's where.
that's okay. We can buy that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. You know, survival equipment, fishing equipment, you know, like a portable heater, you know, any of those things that you could do, you know, to protect yourself and protect your family, most definitely. An extra knife, you know what I'm saying? So you know, some things you need for your shrine, all that, you know, go out there and get that stuff on, you know, on the cheap, you know. So it's Black Friday. So if y'all wanted to, you know, hear what's going on Ku Kim. I heard, you know, some cat supposed to be coming on there talking some noise on Friday. So, and then you know we go back. Then we get on Benu again on Saturday, African Liberation School. And also on Do Now's Radio, we're going to be doing a fatherhood tribute. My father's physical is on Saturday, so we're going to be on dealing with some fathers and, you know, speaking about the topic of Black fatherhood. So if y'all want to come through and hear that, this course will be on Saturday before African Liberation School. So we'll be on 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday, and 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Saturday, African Liberation School. So I definitely want to say Dwight and Sid to the Abat for coming through and holding the line, holding strong, and bringing all of these wonderful and amazing viewpoints and perspectives on this, you know, sacred writings that we have entitled Remembering Osir, a gift from the Neteru and a gift from our ancestors to help us, you know, put our bodies back together again to become one body again. So that's all I had.
All right. I say, Dwight and Ted, you know, I say I'm good to go. Looking forward to the build this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Submission on Saturday. You know, get it popping early on Friday.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So we out of here, family. Catch us back here next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
See you, Uncle Justin.
Nepti, be well.
Gary Neffer.
Snapchat. Gary Neffer.
Gary Neffer.